All right, so it's 6 o'clock and we'll start the Thursday, October 13th, 2022 Great Barrington Planning Board meeting. Do I need to read the Governor Baker statement still?
Yeah.
Okay, so pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members of any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the planning board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, and those who wish to do may attend remotely by following the instructions on the agenda. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. And just so the public knows that Chris is keeping an eye on attendees and is watching for hand raising in the attendee group. Also pursuant to MGL 7C 30A section 20, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any members of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listings of the agenda item are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. In addition, per section 241(1) of the town code, except for procedural and housekeeping matters, town residents shall have the right to address a board on any item that requires a vote at the time before a board votes on that item. Such residents will be allowed as much time as the proponent of an item is permitted to have. So this meeting is being recorded and we will do a roll call attendance. Jeremy, we'll start with you since you're remote.
Here or not there.
Pedro,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Here.
Jonathan,
Here.
Brandy here. All right, great. So we will get started then. Did we have any Form As come in?
No Form As.
Okay, then we'll move on to the minutes of September 22nd. Do we have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Malcolm. Do we have any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote. Jeremy,
Aye.
Jonathan,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
Pedro,
Aye.
Brandy, aye. All right, moving on to item number 3, common driveway East Mountain Road, application from Stephen Yang and Katie Lee, care of Charles Ferris, for a common driveway originating at 21 East Mountain Road and intended to serve 3 dwelling units on East Mountain Road, lots 11 through 15. Mr. Ferris, good evening.
Good evening, thank you.
If you want the application or photos up on screen for people to see, we can do that.
Okay, well, and the only thing that might make sense would be the Easement Plan. That you can get that.
Okay, so folks on screen by video and people in the room can see the easement plan that Charlie's going to be referring to.
Okay, so East Mountain Estates is a private homeowner association. East Mountain Road is a private road that services the association. There has been, since the association was developed, this existing private way that you see already mapped on our easement plan. And it has been used as a common driveway for 2 of the lots. One is owned by the Most Family Trust. One's currently owned by Fred Kasner. It had been owned by Gaston. The applicants years and years ago asked that it be considered a common driveway. At that time, there was a pretty contentious long-running application for this homeowner association, but ultimately, and probably correctly, the board decided you couldn't make it a common driveway because according to the minutes that I saw, there was no common driveway bylaw at that time. So it was denied, but meanwhile, it's been used as a common driveway for whatever, 30+ years. I did send in some photos belatedly today, just showing you the driveway surface. It's very well maintained. The first 200 feet are paved. The last 800 or 1,200 feet are gravel. That's about 14 or so feet wide. It doesn't really make any tight turns anywhere along the way. My clients own the 2 lots in between Most and Casner. They want to put up 1 house. So currently they're asking for an application that will serve the 2 existing houses at the driveway and 1 house on their 2 lots. They haven't decided which lot they're going to build in.
Which of the lots, Charlie, have houses on them?
And so coming off East Mountain Road, you see a little driveway branching off, and that's the Most Family Trust. And then you get to the end where there is a turnaround. And then the driveway branches off further up that lot, and that's where the house is for Casner.
So Freddie's got a house there where the cul-de-sac is.
Yes,
Yeah.
a couple hundred feet above that.
Yeah, okay.
The benefits of the existing of using the existing right of way as a driveway are pretty significant. First of all, it's there. Second of all, you can't tell by looking at this, but the topography is extremely steep. So in between East Mountain Road and the existing right of way, the topography rises about 100 feet. So in order to cut a private driveway, which they would have the right to do, they'd have to do an S curve, snake a driveway up that hill and make 2 or 3 or 4 S curves. That would be much more difficult for emergency vehicles to use. It'll be obviously a little more dangerous for someone to use in the winter. So I think there's a safety benefit. And also, I mean, environmentally, the more you cut into that hill, the more drainage, erosion comes down that driveway. So, and then this is in the scenic mountain zone. Anything that happens here is going to be carefully monitored by the Conservation Commission. But, cutting driveway, cutting trees down is something that is not really is not a desirable goal. I mean, it's what the Concom and the Scenic Mountain Act are all trying to prevent. So I know the fire department came and looked, and the fire chief said, well, fire safety on long, narrow driveways is limited. But I mean, that's not a function of the shared driveway. That's simply a statement of fact that when you have a house that's far away from water, your chances of greater damage from fire are significant. There is that one turnaround at the end, so vehicles can turn around. I think that this application, as I said, is better for the environment, the view line, safer for vehicles, and the existing right of way is in pretty good shape, so it makes sense to use it. Any questions?
Do you have any idea what the turning radius is in the cul-de-sac there?
I couldn't tell you. I took a look at it earlier today, and it's a fairly big. We could probably measure it. Okay, we could measure the width on the site plan, I guess. I can't do it on my miniature.
Don't want to help with the radius.
Yeah, it would be. Mr. Ferris, when Chief Berger came and looked at it, did he happen to go up to the cul-de-sac and turn around up there?
All I saw was his email that he
Okay.
sent to the board. I wasn't there.
And he probably wasn't driving a fire truck. He was probably driving a Jeep.
It's definitely wide, more than wide enough to allow a truck to come up the driveway. I think the trucks need a minimum of 11 feet. And the gravel is about 14 feet wide, and there's also flat grass that's not, doesn't have the airport gravel on it, on a couple of feet on either side.
What's in the island itself?
In that cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
I think some boulders and some growth.
So you're not gonna drive on it?
No, yeah, I mean, that's really there only at this point, for an emergency. I mean, I think you'd be more likely to do a 3-point turn into it than go all the way around in one stretch. Could allow for it.
Yeah, fire trucks don't tend to do 3-point turns.
12-point turns.
The good drivers can do it. Definitely.
Yeah, they would back out. And along the straight driveway, they would just back out.
It's quite a ways. Though.
So, can you explain please your rationale as far as the way our code is written? It's 3 dwelling units. And it looks to me like this common driveway currently serves 5 building lots.
Well, okay, but right, so the application that we're putting in now is for 3 dwelling units. The new bylaw allows up to 9 dwelling units, but you would have to have a wider road surface and wider easement. Currently, there's a 30-foot easement, which is sufficient under the bylaw. When you hit 4 dwelling units, then it requires a 40-foot wide easement. So the parties have agreed that we would extend the easement to allow for that if necessary. But we're not seeking to make maximum use of the bylaw. We have to come in for a modification of the permit if we add another house. But this meets the basic criteria for 3, for 1, 2, or 3 houses sharing a driveway.
So there are 2. You're saying there are 2 houses existing now?
And we're just applying to put one more
One more.
on it, and we're reserving the right to put it on whatever 15 or 15 or 17.
And so Yang is the applicant.
Yes.
Yeah,
Steve,
okay.
Steve, Yang, and Katie.
Okay.
And if necessary, then there's another lot at the far end that's owned by Gaston, the person he owned, Mr. Gaston.
He sold it, didn't he?
Well, yes, his son, I think, owns one more lot at the other side of Kastner, the last lot. But it's agreed in they're a participant in the restricted covenants, but they've agreed that we have priority. We weren't gonna buy the lot unless we had priority to put the first house and make use of the bylaw so that we could have 3 houses. After that, if either of the parties want to put up another house, there's gonna be more modifications of the easement and another permit application so that it meets the permit.
Yeah, and I think we just want to be careful, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the way we got to 9 dwelling units was that we're essentially moving in the direction of allowing a 3-family by right. So a 2-family house and an ADU. That's not 5 lots, because that would get you up to potentially 15.
Right.
And that's a subdivision road that you have to have. So
Right,
I want to make sure that the applicant understands
Right.
that. Okay.
absolutely. So that this is for a single family house on the driveway. And we could not, couldn't put up 15 dwelling units up there without
A subdivision road, yeah, a full-on road. Yeah.
But in the very beginning, when you were proposing to adopt the bylaw, I can't remember what the wording was, but we changed it so, because it was going to be restricted to 3 lots, the way it was originally written. And I had come to the board and to Chris saying, that probably won't solve many problems if you still restrict it to 3 lots. So that you guys changed the proposed bylaw was adopted. But it's still limited to the 9 units. And even at 9, I think they'd have to be pretty, the way the bylaw is from 4 to 6 units, there's one road surface required, and then 7, 8, 9 is an even wider, better road.
Because we'd expect a higher intensity of use.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy, I don't want to forget about you out there in Never Never Land. Do you have any questions for Mr. Ferris?
I don't at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Jonathan, do you have any additional questions?
I'm just looking at the changes that we made, and we addressed the number of dwelling units. We didn't change the number of lots, though, did we?
You eliminated the restrictions of 3 lots, I think.
Correct. Charlie's correct. We eliminated the reference to lots and just discussed dwelling units.
And currently East Mountain Estates is limited to single family. Under their bylaws, you can't even add what do you call it? Right.
So 153.19D says common driveway shall provide access to no more than 3 lots and no more than 9 dwelling units.
Oh, we didn't eliminate that. I see what you're reading, John.
Thought it was-
Well, we should put
So-
that on our list to revisit.
Yeah, in this case, it is just technically access to 3,
And the others couldn't use it
Right.
right? Not unless this was revised.
unless they
permanently
come back for a subdivision or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Or revise
I
it.
thought I saw a version with it when that was removed.
I'll just check real quick, Brandy, if you want to continue.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Anything beyond that at the moment?
No, I would second what Charlie said, that it's very steep between the road and the common driveway.
And so
And
you're
so
saying that in terms
accessing
of
those lots directly from the road is not
there's an
very practical.
environmental benefit to using the
Yeah.
shared driveway, okay.
Yeah.
Malcolm, anything?
What's the total length of the driveway to the cul-de-sac?
Where's your calculator, Charlie? Come on.
I was trying to add it up.
Yeah, I was
Malcolm.
trying to add
It-
it too. I didn't know what they had, actually.
Yeah, it looked like it was like well over 1,000 feet.
A lot, so yeah.
Oh, there was supposed to be some notes on here about individual lengths.
There's cord lengths on the easement, and so we could do some math.
Yeah, it's probably pretty close to 1,000 feet.
So let's say more than 1,000.
Well, actually, the shared driveway currently ends at the edge of Fred Kasner's lot, because he's the only person making use of the driveway now. There's an easement that continues, but the driveway doesn't continue to the last Gaston lot.
Mhm.
So I think you would only add up the first.
I make it about 800 feet on Union Mapper.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Because, the design standards, the road design standards. Limited to 1,000 feet, so if it's more than 1,000 feet, adding the cul-de-sac, then it goes to a different standard, right? Is what you sent out, so the road standards that you sent out, Chris, the small lane standards would apply to this, as long as it's under 1,000 feet.
Not for 3 units.
For 3 units, the basic driveway standards apply,
Right,
Okay,
which are in chapter 153.
right. So when you get up to 5 or 6, or
so it's,
something,
okay,
that's when you have to consider
Thank you.
widening it.
Sorry, this is our first one.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
We're not used to meeting in person.
Anything else, Malcolm?
no,
Pedro?
Yeah, the only question I have is, and it might not be relevant, but in the covenant agreement and the driveway agreement, is there a reason why you don't list lot 11?
Well, because it's not being used, used for access to a house on that lot. There's an existing deeded easement that crosses over that lot, but if you look, I mean, that lot has easy access from East Mountain Road, doesn't need that little apron that comes up the lot. And I can't reach it, but I mean, it's not, certainly not gonna be accessing a house in the far corner. And if they use the apron, I mean, it would really just be, you know, a de minimis use of 5 or 10 feet as they cross on their lot to reach.
So
They're not
11
gonna
is,
be,
11 is not part of the.
right, they're not part of the covenant, they're not.
That's not 11. Is, oh, lot 11, number 21, okay.
Lot 11, yeah.
I'm curious who would decide that, because if they're using even the apron, are they not using part of the
Well,
common driveway? I mean, they could do,
they won't have the right to use it as a driver.
they could make their
But
own
they don't have to
driveway.
come to the town to get a curb cut. Because
Right,
it's not a town road.
Exactly,
Uh,
so they
They
could
just
just
have to
make,
go to the association to get a curb cut. I
Right.
guess.
so they wouldn't be able to use that little stretch, but they can make their own driveway.
There's no unit on lot 20.
yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
like a lot.
I know, that's why I prefaced my question.
Well,
by
it
saying-
just wasn't gonna work if we added too many lots to the right to use it, and they, you know, don't have any imminent plans of building, and we did not approach them, we
Okay.
just made use of our existing DUDs.
Good. That's it.
Okay,
Um,
great. Chris?
I do not see that we ever changed that section 153-19D
Is that-
reference to not more than 3 lots.
They could have been an oversight.
It could have been,
Cause I thought you emailed me something with that stricken out.
So,
I'm looking at 2 previous versions prior to town meeting, and it looks like we didn't strike out that particular reference.
But we struck out the first reference to.
Yeah, so that may be something to do, and I don't think it's relevant to this
Yeah.
particular case.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm looking at the E code version and it is a red line version. And
Really?
yeah,
That's funny. I wonder
it
why
is funny.
they put the red line.
Yeah,
version on.
exactly. It is funny because we normally have a clean copy. But it has under 153-19 D, number of units access to common driveways shall provide access to no more than 3 lots and no more than 9 dwelling units. So
Yeah, that's what Jonathan.
that's still
read.
there.
Yeah, so it's still there. Looks like.
Okay, so let's see. So we are making a,
But generally, the application seems to be compliant with the new law. Highway reviewed it, police reviewed it, fire reviewed it, so we're all okay there.
Mhm.
And the design requirements are just the basic common driveway requirements of chapter 153, not
Right,
requirements of a
wider road,
Subdivision type
wider
road.
driveway or anything. Yeah.
So it seems like as it exists on the ground, it should suffice to meet the
Uh-huh.
requirements.
my only concern, and I'm more familiar with New York, but typically if you have a driveway that's shared more than 500 feet,
Mhm.
The fire code wants to see a pullout every 500 feet so that you've got an opportunity for passing if they're responding to an emergency. There's an opportunity for people that are leaving the area to have a pullout because it is, 14 feet. I recognize it's got shoulders. I mean, my personal feeling is that we should ask that there be a refuge about 500 feet that's created there.
Just a lay-by for.
Well, there would be, the only thing I would say is that, I mean, there would be places where a truck could pull into the actual truck there, because there's driveways coming off. One
And-
for most, there'll be one for Yang, and then there'll be the one at Kazner, but we could just put some, we could require our driveway apron to be 15 feet wide going into
50.
Oh, it needs, you need a 50-foot
Yeah,
long.
to allow someone to pull in.
Oh, that
and
would be
pull
too
out.
wide for a driveway.
Typically, though, that's how I've seen it done, is that an apron is just enhanced so that a vehicle could pull off the main driveway.
But that, I mean, that's if the Concom agrees, you know, because we're gonna, every tree, you know,
But
every
you
tree that
have
comes
an
down is gonna have to be
existing-
with their permission.
You do have an existing cleared way already. It's just a matter of making sure that there's a stable area that you could pull off to. I'm just thinking of it from a safety standpoint, so that's my opinion.
It's a good thought. For the record, the fire chief didn't raise that concern.
Okay. All right, so our action is a approval. It's not a recommendation, right? This is a.
Right.
All right, so, what's the board's pleasure?
I move to approve.
No conditions of any sort?
I didn't hear you. Except perhaps the pull off, but if the fire department's fine with it, I'm not sure what I should insist.
Do we feel there's any need to make it perfectly clear that if there's a fourth lot added, that there's a modification, or feel that's implicit? Is
I think that's implicit.
everybody okay with that? Okay, so we have a motion to approve,
Yeah, second.
and a second by Jonathan. Do you have any further discussion? All right, we'll do roll call vote. Jeremy?
Aye. Sorry.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. All right, thank you.
We need
All
the
right.
houses, Charlie.
I'm sorry, what?
We need the houses.
Okay, and I will recommend to my client that they look into putting in some sort of additional,
It may be a benefit to their homeowner's
Sure.
insurance. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, item number 4 on our agenda is chapter 61, right of first refusal, review and comment to the select board on whether the town should exercise or waive. It's chapter 61, right of first refusal on 79 acres located at 200 North Plain Road, parcel 40 of assessors map 28.
Hi,
Hello, good evening.
Kathleen McCormick, representing Catherine A. Ruger, trustee of the Dennis Robert O'Connor Senior 2017 irrevocable trust, the owner of the property. My presentation is going to be a lot shorter since you pretty much just read all of the information. My client's under contract to sell a 79-acre piece of property that's under chapter 61A. The person that's purchasing it is going to keep it in chapter. But under the statute, the town has a first, we have an option basically to purchase the property. So we're asking the town to waive that so that the transaction can go through. It's scheduled to close in October at the end of the month. So if we can get through all the boards, we'll be on task. So we're just looking for a recommendation to waive that option.
So what is Jane gonna do with it?
Farm. It's gonna be-
Jane's gonna become a
I'm
farmer?
not sure if, I can't speak for the buyer because I represent the seller.
Yeah.
However, I believe it's
There's,
going to be used for a farm,
there's a small house in the center of it or something?
correct?
Okay.
So
Chris, are
I
you-
mean, it will, maybe not, I'm not thinking it's gonna be used by her, but she's purchasing it for that use.
Okay.
There is a hand raised. Do you want to acknowledge? Looks like Berkshire Agricultural Ventures.
Okay, sure.
Okay, EAV should be allowed to talk if they unmute themselves.
Does this work?
Yes.
Can you
can
hear
hear
me? Okay, oh, good, I'm in the car. I do believe that this will be used for farming.
We don't
by
know who you
others.
are.
Oh, I'm
Can you-
Glenn Bergman. I'm so sorry. Glenn Bergman from Berkshire Agricultural Ventures.
Thank you.
And I do believe that it will be farmed by others, but it is, but there is a plan to go ahead and put it back into conservation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, it's in conservation now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the plan is to retain
It's
Chapter
go- it-
61.
It is gonna be conveyed subject to 61. We're not removing the designation.
So the town, if she takes it out, then the town has a.
Another right.
Another
Another
right,
option.
yes.
Well,
We're just asking for them to waive the first right of refusal.
Gotcha.
this time.
Yep, no, that makes sense. So Jeremy, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, Malcolm? Jonathan? No, Peter?
Nope.
No, okay, so then we need to send a
Recommendation.
positive recommendation.
I move that we send a positive recommendation
Yep.
that they, no,
That
we
the
send a recommendation to the select board that they waive the right of first refusal.
Correct.
Second.
Yep. I guess we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Jeremy,
Aye.
Jonathan,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
Pedro,
Aye.
Randy, aye. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, great seeing everybody again.
Yep, take care. All right, item number 5.
I haven't heard about.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, item number 5, site plan review for 343 Main Street, application from 343 Main Street LLC, care of Ian Roush for the renovation and change of use of a commercial building to a mixed-use residential commercial at 343 Main Street. Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Good evening.
So-
How's everybody today?
We're doing good. Jeremy,
Brandy?
hang-
Yeah, so I'm gonna recuse myself. I don't think I have a conflict of interest, but there may be a perceived conflict of interest because I work at the co-op, which is in a butter and shares a shares the road. Well,
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeremy.
So-
So Jeremy is turning off his camera and
Is
has
that-
recused
I'd
himself.
like to turn off the camera.
I think so. I mean, this is our first hybrid meeting, so we're figuring it out as
This
we
is the
go.
virtual audience.
Yeah.
So, good evening, everybody. We submitted our first site plan review back in April 2021.
Who's,
So my name is Ian Rush. I'm the owner of 343 Main Street, Lake Barrington, the old PCC property. April 2021, we submitted a site plan review for a health and wellness center. Over the last year, as I'm sure you can imagine, community health organizations have been struggling with rising costs and lower reimbursement rates. So in short, CHP and volunteer medicine scaled back their plans. And we were sort of pushed into pivoting the project into some other type of use.
could you hold on 1 second?
Of course,
There's a hand raised and it's probably because they can't hear you very well. So just be sure to speak up a little bit more.
absolutely. I'm not gonna start again, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So we pivoted towards a mixed-use residential project. As you are all familiar, we ended up in litigation for the Manville Street project. We went back and had a new feasibility study done by LDS Consulting out of Boston to look at today's demand for housing, and obviously that's been significantly exacerbated with COVID and no more additional units being delivered to market. So that essentially informed our decision. Obviously, you know, we are in a national housing crisis. We're short about 5.5 million units nationwide. Berkeley County's lost about 2% of units, occupied units in the last 20 years. So we're very excited. It is a different project, but in form and substance, as far as the site plan review application goes, not much has changed. I think we downgraded the number of parking spaces slightly, but we're still well over the required amount of parking. The landscaping plan is essentially the same. So yeah, we look forward to any questions that you might have. Mike Valenti's here with me, and Nick. So yeah, just let us know what you'd like to hear about specifically. I don't know if you want a presentation or if you want us just to answer specific questions. Again, the plan and form and function is almost exactly the same as last time. With the exception, so I spent some time just to catch you up, communicating with Chris and with Sean Van Dusen before he left, to figure out the drainage issue along that runs through that parking lot. So we moved all the plantings, trees, and any other infrastructure to stay out of that easement. Yeah, so happy to hear any questions that you have. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
So you're building 15,
13 apartments, primarily 1 bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, 1 studio, and between the 2 floors, and then the 2 retail spaces that are there today up on Main Street, they will remain tenants to be determined.
okay. So no interest from CHP or them for either of those spaces?
No, not at this point. Berkshire Health Systems is still interested potentially, but again, nothing definitive at this moment.
Okay. Pedro, do you have any
I
questions?
do.
No. Do you have any
You
questions?
said it's almost the same. There's landscaping difference, and of course, the change of use. Anything else on the exterior of the building?
The only
Different
thing that's
windows?
changed is we lost 1 or 2.
I can do a little quick walk around the building if you want, would that be helpful?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just highlighting what's different.
Few small changes,
Yeah.
yeah. Michael Valenti, MBA, here representing Ian, obviously, and the other professionals that have other meetings tonight. So, Matt Button, who's the engineer from SK Design, and your friend Kyle,
Kyle Zick.
the landscape architect, they were both at the last presentation. Brandy, you were not there, so I'm sorry you missed that one, so you'll have your opportunity to ask any questions you might have. I actually printed things on paper, if anyone's interested in doing one of those again, it's been a while.
Put it on screen too.
Okay, but I have things on easel, so I don't know if there's a. So I can point to stuff as well. Is that good, Randy?
Yes.
Can you move it closer to your speaker? Yeah. just,
Is any,
this-
are they gonna be able to, is the public gonna be able to see it?
That's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at.
maybe-
And this Zoom
Why
may not
why don't
be-
we, why don't we?
Throw it up
do
on
If I do it on screen.
Yeah.
I can. Once you do it, the landscaping plan is probably, the color landscaping plan is probably best.
How's that?
That's good, thank you,
Look at that, that was fast.
ready to go.
Chris is good.
He's doing this.
My mouse is delayed. I don't know why, so. Bear with the mouse.
Okay, that's fine. So the project's in the B2 zone and as well as some overlay districts, right? You have village center overlay, downtown parking and water quality overlay. We're here for site plan review and this is really the only approval. We think is necessary for the project. The water quality overlay. We are reducing parking in impervious area, so we're actually seeing like a 7% reduction in impervious area, so we, as we're reducing that, we don't think we need any type of permit for that. The parking, I believe the last presentation, we had 41, we've reduced it to 39. And that's based off 2 cars per dwelling unit, and then every 200 square feet of retail space requires a parking space. There is a calculation in there that would require 39, we provided 39, and that's not even taking into the downtown parking reduction allowance, so we meet the bylaw for the town as is. And in regards to the use, like the use has changed, and that combined with just the change inside the building has caused some changes around the exterior. For example, there used to be an exterior steel egress structure on the back of the building. Where there is one today, we were gonna replace it. We no longer need it because as it's an apartment and it's connected both floors and there's an interior staircase and elevator, we can provide egress inside the building. So we're actually restoring the back of that building to what it used to be. It's actually interesting, is the last 3 bays of that building is an addition that was built sometime after the main building itself. We didn't figure that out until we started really taking like ceiling tile off, stuff like that, but it's different structure, but almost looks identical. See if there's anything else here.
Since I'm like a little remedial here, you probably
Sure.
covered it last time, but could you just explain the right of access to the property? Since it doesn't appear to have an easement off of,
There's a survey, you have a survey as part of the.
what I was. just looking for in the-
Survey. There's an access easement from Main Street,
Okay,
going past the abandoned building, the old buffet. That is also in the area of the
drainage easement there. So you can see the dark line is the actual property. So there's access off Main Street through that access easement, which is also a drainage easement for the town. They have a
Oh.
big, very big drainage easement.
The drainage easement is also an access easement?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe if you zoom in, it probably, there's Mike Parsons has a plan in there. It's in your folders or in your packet as well.
I'm not sure what's the sheet?
They're all kind of different. And I haven't printed it.
Yeah, so 33, by 33, we're gonna look for.
Page 30.
Yeah.
I just haven't printed it. It's probably the beginning. Oh, yeah. Right before all the architectural plans, that's the B.
By 33.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. So so you see the drainage easement is
Yep.
the white one here, and then this is the access easement for the property.
And is there also an access easement on the east side?
There is, well, at the bottom, you'll see on the plan, there's an additional access for that road as well. There's a right of way, but I mean, it's historically used like gravel drive that people, they get their big drive, people cheat and go through there and get to the.
Yep.
We have since shut down runway.
Yeah.
It's been quite a busy road, but no longer.
And you killed a lot of parking spaces too,
Yeah.
on property you don't even own.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate
Sure,
the
no problem.
humoring me with the questions.
What else should I go over? You talk about the U13 apartments.
Lighting didn't change from previous.
Oh, we just moved some of the, we showed lights that were inside the drainage easement last time, so we just moved them, so we don't have to dig inside, put, say concrete footings
Yep.
in the easement. I noticed today in the packet, you're actually missing the spec for the building mounted light, so I printed out 10 copies of that. I think it was in the last presentation, but somehow was not included in this one. With you guys, would everyone like one?
Sure.
So it's a 2700K fixture, duck sky compliant.
Thank you.
So I highlighted those on there for you. I know that's what you guys. What? Sorry, you didn't have that. The specs for the other lights are also in there, for the pole mounted lights, which are also dark sky and the same color temperature. I believe.
Great.
Last time, wasn't there a question about the height of those
The poll.
poles?
Yeah, they're 20 feet. Can we reduce them or is that okay?
They were initially proposed pretty high and the board wanted them reduced to 20.
Oh,
So
20
I
is a
think that's
reduced
what
number?
is.
Okay,
I think we have it at 25 originally.
okay,
Yeah, they mirror the co-op lights, the height of the co-op lights.
yeah.
Okay, great. All right, Jonathan, any other questions?
Photometric plan seems okay. Virtually okay.
Okay. Malcolm? No, okay, Peter, you said no before, so nothing else there.
Nope.
Okay. We should run through site plan again, I guess. Because that's what we do.
And do you have a color temperature for the pole mounted lights?
Yeah, there's a big long spec in there, where I highlighted all that information as well. I don't know what page on the PDF it is, but it's right after the lighting plan. But it's 2700 as well.
It is, okay.
Yes, it looks like this page.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's good, yeah, it's page 44. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they give me plans, I can't look beyond the- I can't look beyond the plan.
Maybe Zoom was better.
You look at 3 things. at once.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't even have to work it.
Well, let's not go there. Okay, gentlemen, shall we run through site plan review? No one's got any other questions, so this is a adaptive reuse of an existing building, so this should make our site plan review relatively straightforward. So per 10.5, minimize volume of cut and fill and the number of removed trees, 6-inch caliper or larger, and the length of removed stone walls, area of wetland vegetation. The extent of stormwater flow increase from the site, soil and erosion control, and threat of air and water pollution. Think there's any impact there. Maximize accessibility and pedestrian and vehicular safety, both on the site and accessing and exiting the site. So these are existing access ways that are historic to the property. There's adequate amount of parking, and it's connected to the town's pedestrian walkway system. So that seems good. Minimize obstruction of scenic views from publicly accessible locations. I think that applies. Minimize visual intrusion by controlling visibility of parking, storage, or other outdoor service areas viewed from public ways or premises residentially used or zoned. So there is the adjacent Powerhouse Square project. But it looks like the applicant is screening their dumpster and utility pad in the back of the property.
I have a question. Have the plans changed, or are there any changes in plans for the building next door?
The abandoned building?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Nothing has
Not
changed there.
until you guys take title to it and we can have a conversation.
Alright.
Right now, it's in tax title.
Okay, so that's blocking all the parking,
So
It's, sorry, Mark?
it's blocking all the parking, so. the view of the parking.
Providing.
So you're providing 2 handicap spaces for the residents. What about for the commercial spaces?
There's two,
Oh, they're on the
Existing.
street. They're on the
Yeah.
street. Yeah, I see.
so
Okay.
there's two right in front of the building
Yeah.
and then two in
Okay.
the parking lot.
All right, got it.
Which is more than enough for code.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have adequate parking, storage, outdoor service areas are screened. Minimize glare from headlights, minimize light glare into the night sky, minimize overspill onto adjacent properties. So we've just discussed that there are dark sky compliant fixtures, both building mounted and in the parking lot. So that is good. Minimize unreasonable departure from the character, materials, and scale of the building in the vicinity as viewed from public ways and places. You're not materially changing the exterior facade, right?
No.
Let's see, minimize contamination of groundwater from on-site wastewater disposal systems or operations on premises involving the use, storage, handling, or containment of hazardous substances. It's gonna be de minimis quantities, so not an issue there. And ensure compliance with the provision of the zoning bylaw, including parking and landscaping. And that appears to be met as well. Okay,
I have a question about circulation for the parking. Can we go back to the parking plan? So if I wanted to park the closest to Powerhouse Square.
Down at the
Can we-
like, southeast,
Yeah. I wanted to park down there, but I'm coming off of Main Street. How do I get there?
you're coming up Main Street to get to these parking
Yep,
spaces?
yep.
You would come down this road and come around this way and through,
You enter from Main Street.
if you enter from Main Street.
So you have to go around near the building.
So you're directing all of that traffic across the crosswalk as opposed to, what if you eliminated this island here at the southeast corner of that middle portion?
Southeast, so
Right,
over
yeah.
here,
Yeah, and allowed passage there. Wouldn't that make more sense? Could be-
oh, like the way, it kind of is that way now. I mean, we were trying to reduce impervious area, so if we were to put that back. I believe it's steep over there, isn't it?
The
currently?
grades are quite steep.
Yeah.
We were trying to avoid big cut and fills.
Yeah.
Oh,
The bank essentially slopes up.
but it's not ideal to send all of that traffic past the front door.
I hear what you're saying, Jonathan.
There's essentially two entrances. There's a Main Street entrance to
Yeah.
access the apartments and an elevator kind of in the middle, and then there's a lower entrance. So there's two ways for residential tenants to get into the building, right off Main Street or at the lower level there.
But presumably they're ones who are parking here and they're gonna be going in the lower level.
He's concerned that there's someone could get hit in that crosswalk because people are going through that way all the time.
I don't know how else you would do it though.
Well, you'd have to remove parking here and go that way. Well, I mean, you'd have to remove that island. I know it is steeper in that area. The existing parking lot is very steep in that
And I
area.
like the island.
The back entrance won't be open?
Back entrance.
The back entrance is open.
Down there with the red car.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind, not that this pertains to this exact discussion, but we rented, a parking lot at the top of 47 Railroad Street. Of the 13 apartments, less than half of them actually rent spaces. They don't have a car, or they have a bike, or they, park in publicly available parking. So it's interesting. I mean, they're all, more than half of them are leased out to retail tenants that have nothing to do with that building.
And then most of them park back here, so they can go into the building the back way.
Exactly.
Yeah, right next to the town hall.
Parking is not logical.
No, definitely.
Jonathan, I think the crosswalk is well lit. I don't.
It's not it's not really like a public building, It's
Yeah,
private
that's what
residence,
I'm
it's not
thinking.
Guido's.
Right.
And you have a back entrance. So if you wanted to park there, you can go to the back.
Well, I think Jonathan's concern is the people that are parking in this middle block, walking back and forth, and someone who's parking down here.
Sure.
coming in.
You can also enter the building here as well. There's two lower level areas.
Right. I don't think it's a.
But that's the prime entrance right there. On the side.
I think it depends
Correct.
on where you might live, though.
If you were coming to visit someone, you would likely go in there or you go into the
Yeah, but if
upper
you,
level.
yeah, but let's say you park there and you have an upper floor apartment and you're walking into town. I mean, you're gonna take the elevator up, walk out the main street there, up off of Main Street. So I don't know.
But isn't the point, the people who park there and go in the side entrance are gonna be in jeopardy because of the cars going through, maybe going down to the lower lot, who might want to go in the back entrance.
I mean, it's 13 apartments. How many cars is it gonna be? I mean, we don't even have
Yeah, it's not-
13.
Not- it's
Yeah,
not-
it's not-
cars.
It's not a lot of
So,
traffic.
I mean, the existing circulation is also the same as this, really.
Yeah.
You can't currently do this. Everyone does this. In fact, used to park up against the building here. We've taken all the parking spaces and moved them off the building. So I think that's a lot safer than people, keep getting asphalt away from the entrances. It's probably a net gain in safety. I would think.
The car movement through that site from Main Street down the hill, following to the front, to that lower door, that's a very slow movement, because that's a tight turn.
Yes.
These cars are not going more than 10, 15 miles an hour, most. It occurs to me that Berkshire South has a very similar setup.
And I would think it'd actually be less trips a day here, just based on the use, right? I mean, it's not like there's no business down there anymore.
Yep.
I mean, the dentistry, they had 6, 7, 8 exam rooms that would probably cycle through, hourly every day, plus the old jewelry store there and the BCC people working down there. So
I'm fine with it myself.
Okay.
Were there conditions that ran with the last approval that I should be aware of?
The conditions included, the lights at the time were too tall.
Okay.
And I believe coordination was required with Public Works regarding the drainage easement, both conditions you've heard them speak about tonight.
And I don't think they had the trees species last time, did they?
Don't recall. I think they may have.
I think we had I don't think there were any changes to the tree spending. What happened was spots were removed for the, we needed an HVAC ground mounted location because it's gonna be a VRF project, and putting those units are like 6, 7 feet tall on top of the 18-inch pedestal, and putting them on the historic roof of a historic building was deemed to be historically and visually impeding.
Mm-hmm.
So we opted to put them on the ground. So yeah, it'll be nice, actually, those big units that are up there are going away. There'll be actually a reduction of equipment on the roof. So.
Okay.
So that was, and that's where you see, this is the area for that is over there. So that's where you're seeing we lost the pieces.
Mm-hmm. So if the preview, oh, go ahead.
This is probably out of your realm, Michael, but is the Princeton elm, is that the safest elm to, is that the most likely
I
to
don't know.
survive?
I could ask Siri, I'm not sure. So,
And I think you may have had a Princeton.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
And I planted it that.
Thank you.
Princeton and the Jefferson, I think the Jefferson may be the latest iteration. I think that's what we used on Main Street. Jefferson. cultivar.
Oh, so maybe we should suggest. Looking at that.
I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I think they have qualified landscape architects.
Yeah, they work for the town too. They're doing it at the Mansfield Park. are they
Yes.
not?
I'm gonna, I've seen Kyle's work. I'm pretty impressed with what he does, so I'm gonna
okay.
suggest you.
I mean, I love elms. so
Yeah, me too.
It's just
Hopefully.
having-
it'll survive.
bought one from Elm Watch and have it die after it's 40 feet tall. That's a little.
Sad is what happens. Okay, so you're saying, Chris, that the two conditions have been satisfied, no need to
Believe they
carry
have.
them forward into this revised site plan approval. Okay, so that said, then, we need a motion to approve the site plan for 343 Main Street.
So moved.
Jonathan, thank you for the second.
Second.
Thank you, Malcolm. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Jonathan, what's your vote?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Brandy, aye. All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Nice
Good
to see you all again.
Yes, you as well.
need
We should
extra-
let Jeremy know.
Do I? Not really. Do you want them?
No, I don't
Okay,
need.
we're going back to recycling paper copies.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
thank you. Thank
Good
you. Good night.
Oh, we
All right,
didn't,
there's
Ian,
Jeremy.
we didn't ask, are they gonna be rental or for sale?
Rent.
Okay.
Oh, Chris, I need you to get that.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, thank you. All right, welcome back, Jeremy. Item number 6 is strategies to increase housing opportunities, Stockbridge Road, and alternative residential types, dormitories and shared living arrangements, also referred to as single room occupancy. So Chris, do you have anything to say about Stockbridge Road and where things are at there?
I don't have anything new to say regarding the Stockbridge Road zoning efforts that we were doing last year. We wanted to put it back on the agenda, so we, number one, didn't lose sight of it, and we tried to advance it this year. Just briefly, for the benefit of the board and those attending, including people in person. One person, by the way, there's one person in person.
You have to
And-
speak so the owl looks at you, Jeff.
And six remotely in addition to the board members and staff. So the Stockbridge Road discussions last year evolved from a proposal that Pedro put forth, and then we had some technical assistance with Berkshire Regional Planning Commission staff to look at some incentive zoning on Stockbridge Road that could possibly create more housing units on Stockbridge Road or other amenities. And we studied several sites on Stockbridge Road to see if these proposals could in fact work. Could they add density, i.e. additional housing units at certain sites? We found that it could work in some places. The proposal, in essence, where we left it last year was an extension of the existing B2X zone, which is State Road, like from the old Brown Bridge now. What do we call it?
Great Bridge.
Great Bridge, Red Bridge. From there to Belcher Square. That's essentially the existing B2X zone. And the B2X zone allows for mixed uses. It allows for reduced parking requirements. It has reduced front setback requirements. In fact, there's a maximum front setback requirement. So it allows for a little bit closer development, denser development, and less space required for parking, essentially. The idea that the planning board discussed was taking those regulations, extending them to Stockbridge Road, and adding possibly a provision of the use table that would allow for it, or the dimensional table, I'm sorry, that would allow for additional units or density or height where developments provided affordable housing or other amenities. So it was the B2X zone with an incentive to add height or density. We said we would study it more, we would come back to discuss it.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Finally.
And it may play into this board's continuing efforts to increase housing opportunities throughout town, but particularly in places that can withstand additional development, meaning they have roads, they have sidewalks, they have water and sewer and other infrastructure. So that's the Stockbridge Road discussion and history in a nutshell. I'm not sure exactly how we should move forward at this point. Pedro and I have had a few just quick email discussions, but I have not advanced it any further or gone back to study specific sites or the proposed text in any more detail.
So, Berkshire Regional Planning, I think, did little, like studies of density for 2 or 3 properties for us.
Right.
Right? And didn't we draft some text and the modification of table uses? So, and dimensional requirements, right?
Right.
Okay. So maybe we should bring that back up and see where it stands. I remember my concern pertained to just how the adjacency with the residential zone to the east is adequately buffered.
Mhm.
But otherwise, I'm pretty supportive of seeing some additional opportunity for growth in that corridor. It's well situated for growth.
There was something that was discussed, I think we may have even adopted it, this is years ago, in relation to that protection of that residential neighborhood, which is basically from the setback line on the residential property at a 45-degree angle, establishing the height limit. Is that still there?
That does exist, John.
It does exist.
I'll try to find the reference.
Good luck. So that might assuage your concern,
Yeah,
if it's still there,
yeah, I
and if
think
it would apply to this district.
when we got to the point of talking about 5 stories potentially, the thought I had was if I'm, one of the properties on your street, Malcolm, and I've got this big building and everybody on the top floor is like looking down into my backyard. To a certain extent, you can't get away from that, but you can create some buffer that can mitigate potential impacts and shading and things like
Yeah,
that.
I'm far enough from Stockbridge Road, but there are residential houses that are near Stockbridge Road that would be impacted by, 4 or 5 story buildings on them.
The section Jonathan is talking about is 4.2.6. Uses near abutting districts, and it sets out 2 criteria regarding setbacks from that residential district and the hut and a sort of 45-degree plane that restricts the height near the residential district.
Okay. So we can
Still
look
there,
at it
John.
in terms
After
of-
all these years.
No one's
So-
asked for a variance yet.
So this is, this sounds like this could be, one of our big things for bylaw changes this year. So when do we have to, backing up here, when do we have to start finalizing language? I guess that's the.
Next meeting.
Yeah, I would say like
Yes,
December,
yes,
right?
we do.
Early December.
The next meeting looks relatively clear of major applications. It could be devoted entirely to zoning discussions. You could set an additional meeting in November if you want. We usually run into Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
We try to finish by the end of December, early January with a substantial discussion, at least something that this board feels is ready to put out for public review.
Mhm.
Amendments can happen subsequent to that, but
Yeah.
it's in fairly good.
I feel like we looked at it a couple of times. I don't know that it needs a lot of work. I think we just wanted to study it and kind of understand the massing so that we could communicate with the public a little bit more about what it means.
We were in, I think, February last year, and it was
It was too rushed at that
a
point.
little too close, and,
Yeah.
and the board just wanted more time.
Well, let's not do that again this year. Let's
Yeah.
make sure we get it early and get it tied up.
Can you send that to us?
Yeah, I could not find what we were.
Sure.
The old version, I mean, have it.
So it was February last year. That's the reason we're not. Or February this year, I guess.
Chris, not to derail the discussion, but we had 4 or 5 smaller housekeeping type items that we've been through already. Do you have like a spreadsheet? Like, are we taking too much time at town meeting, or do most of those items seem small enough that you think that they're fairly procedural?
Well, one never knows how town meeting it will go.
True.
I think some of the amendments the board has discussed. I think in August, we landed at the final version of a few different proposals, including the 3-family use of a single lot and some other small textual changes, not necessarily small in terms of impact. I think
Right.
they'll have important impacts. So easy to read, but potentially generating a lot of discussion. So
Yeah.
one never knows.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. So we'll visit the text of Stockbridge Road at the next meeting, the 2nd October meeting.
Mhm.
Okay.
I would think that important to think about would be any incentives that we add on. If we're indeed gonna adopt the B2X there, if there's gonna be some incentives.
If I recall, the incentives you had proposed were if there was an affordability,
Just density bonuses,
Density
height
bonus-
bonuses, if there's
affordability,
affordability,
Childcare.
childcare or senior housing.
senior, okay, yeah, okay, those are all good things.
Right. There were some other discussions about if a project in this corridor included some of these provisions, the board could waive certain parts of its site plan criteria, et cetera. There were additional ways to streamline the project.
Mhm.
All of those were discussed, and I think they're all in the text, which I'll send.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Jeremy, did you have anything on Stockbridge Road B2X plus?
No,
Okay,
thanks.
how about, since you're on, how about alternative residential types, dormitories and shared living arrangements?
Do I have any,
Comments, questions, thoughts, feelings, one way or another?
no, I mean, I'm still of the opinion that it's a good idea to pursue them.
So I've not yet prepared anything for the board to look at in that regard, in terms of zoning for alternative residential types. We're still doing some research in that regard, so hopefully by the next meeting, we can include that as well.
Has anyone come in to town hall asking about whether or not we're considering a single room occupancy type housing type for the town? Like,
Nobody's,
is there external interest, I guess?
Well, Josh Irwin did.
yeah, I think there's external interest by folks who build and operate and provide affordable housing in the region. They see this alternative residential type where people don't necessarily have a big house all to themselves, but have some kind of shared living arrangement as an important part of the housing opportunity puzzle. And they something that would be beneficial for us to pursue. And we discussed possibly having some of those housing development partners come and talk to us about that.
Well,
Yeah.
Construct is, I don't know if they bought it yet or they're now under contract to buy the Windflower. So,
The Windflower Inn
Yeah.
over near Egremont.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
And when I was listening to those presentations, it sounded like they wanted, like, if this works out, this is something that they may want to pursue again somewhere else.
Well,
It-
they're also, it looks like they're maybe buying Dave Carpenter's family's house in New Marlboro, the biggest estate on Route 57.
Yeah, it looks like the town, that's what I was just looking at, the town's gonna use ARPA funds for that and then cost us.
Brandon, do you want to take a comment?
Sure, I see there is a commenter with their hand raised.
Oh, I thought that was the park.
Yeah, I know.
James, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good evening. This is James, 84 North Plain Road.
James, could you please give us your last name?
Sure. James Garzone, Garzon.
Do we need that for our record?
Absolutely. One request, I don't know if it's possible, is to have a list of items that either are permitted or under construction. You know, tonight we had some great presentations, one with the 13 units being in town and then the other one a little outside of town. But then we also have other items like 148 Maple that is permitted, but I know it's changing ownership. We have the Windflower that was just mentioned. You know, we have the Sears School, which is going to be a hotel permitted, but still, you know, not under construction. Then we have other items. And I would think it would help to have a comprehensive list of things that the town has in the pipeline. So at least when decisions are made, that can drive what is needed, you know, like the single house residencies or, you know, affordable housing, workforce housing. So that was my only suggestion for this. And I also want to make a comment about the micro transit that is being implemented in January and February. Just want to give Tate commendation for all the hard work that he did. And that was a great win for the community, which I would help the community and the workforce people around the town. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. If you're not familiar with it, available on the website, I think under the planning board page, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, is the housing needs study that we had completed. Maybe now a year and a half ago,
It was 2020.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
almost 3. Oh my goodness.
You've lost
I
track of
told
time.
you the time is.
Back when we met in person.
Yeah, the housing needs study is good and valid in many ways, certainly establishes a baseline of different types of units and affordability levels that we have, and I think that are needed. I'm sure that's only increased. The select board is in response to planning board's letter, has directed staff, namely me, to provide them with some recommendations about next steps. And that will include, as Mr. Garzon said, and Selectman Abrams mentioned during the meeting, some sort of list of what's happening in town, what's being built, developed, what do we need at different income levels, different housing types and sizes, and what our strategies are overall, and try to provide the select board and the other boards with a sense of all the different strategies that we're pursuing and who's responsible for which ones.
But realistically, that will only include items that come before this board or the select board, right? So single family homes that are being built one-off,
Of course,
that would be off our radar.
of course. I
Yeah,
think we're
okay.
talking about larger
So
projects.
things like Windrush Commons and,
Habitat site on North Monroe.
yep, okay.
Right.
Oh, I mean, I've had a lot of people say, why aren't we doing more? And I think it's just a matter of, it takes time to identify the problem, identify potential solutions, get building partners and get projects approved, then get them financed and then get them built. So, you know, there's a lot in the pipeline for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's a lot that has been done.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. So would it be appropriate, you know, I don't know that there's pressure on us to move on the single room occupancy for this upcoming town meeting, but you know, at some point inviting Constructin to talk about what their vision is for a single room occupancy type
Yes.
housing. Okay, so maybe we can do that in the winter. Great. Anything else on that, everybody? Jeremy?
I mean, it might be interesting for that, just, I mean, in general, maybe we can invite some of the other, CDC, South Berkshire and Berkshire Housing. I mean, to have a like an affordable housing kind of summit meeting. Just to see if like what we're doing is on track with what, their vision is.
Yeah,
Um,
the housing, the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust also tries to have those discussions with housing development partners like CDC and Construct as well, so I'm sensitive to asking.
Well, the
partners to come to every single
the
meeting.
housing subcommittee is also
Yeah.
moving towards that kind of discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll just want to make sure that.
Yeah, I mean, it can come from the subcommittee, from the housing subcommittee. It doesn't have to be the board.
I think it would be better if it weren't,
I'm-
because then you can broaden the scope to more than just planning board type issues.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
think,
right.
yeah, I mean, that subcommittee is great because then you get the select board there, which is, yeah. I know there was some interest from the trust to, at least members on the trust, with that housing subcommittee. I don't know if they could be invited at some point.
Maybe we can let Malcolm bring that up under board issues and concerns if he's got any input.
Yes, but I'll answer that and say, yeah, we'll take that to the housing subcommittee and say we need to have the housing trust as well as, it's one of the agencies that's responsible for housing in the town, so.
That sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, I think, that was the gist of the select board's direction to staff was try to coordinate the efforts of all of the boards and committees that we have. It's a little bit unwieldy to have all of these boards come and have one big meeting, and so,
Mhm.
and maybe that is the way to go, but staff will try to provide a recommendation.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else, sir?
On a separate subject related, I mean, Chris and I have been talking about what I see as a discrepancy in the bylaw with the terms lodging house, tourist home for transient guests and boarders. We've been having a discussion. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has a problem with it. I mean, I think it's a big problem considering that all of those definitions more or less describe a short-term rental, for example. And some of the terms are not defined in the bylaw, others are conflicting with each other. I mean,
And then you have the building code.
well, the building code, it gives some definitions to some of these things, but so I can run through some of the stuff that we've been talking about if you'd like. Chris mentioned that we had already spoken about this in the past and that there was some,
The lodging house transit guest issue.
right, that there was some pushback. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you guys remember it differently, but I remember that Dineski had some kind of pushback by saying that, since it's already in the code and the bylaw, we shouldn't mess with it, just leave it. Nobody's complained about it or brought it up before, so what's the point? That was my take back then.
It was more of a town council's, if I recall correctly, town council's advice there was because lodging houses and boarding houses, I'm not sure which ones, have definitions set in state law, that the planning board's considerations last year could conflict with the state law. And that was
With the
issue.
state definition.
Correct.
All right,
And
so
so,
I can
so
find.
calling our uses one of those would run into some issues, so we have to be cognizant of that. So at the time, we backed off. It was again close to town meeting. And there were some potential issues with the way we're going at that point.
So I guess I can try and find those definitions.
I think
Those
I have
uses?
them, I think I have them from my, notes with town council, so I just needed to get in.
Okay.
dig into it.
If you guys want, I can run you through some of these notes that I have for these terms.
I feel like we have gone through this.
I
We
don't
just
think we
haven't.
have. I don't think we have in depth. I think we just always kind of
Well,
glance over it and
let's-
then move on.
can we put it on, if it's gonna be a discussion and you've got like text to share, can we put it on as item? I don't know where it even fits. If it's a separate, it's not a strategy to increase housing opportunities, right?
Well, it's alternative residential types.
And I have a problem with saying that this isn't all that, saying that like single room occupancy is alternative residential type. It's like a primary residential type across the planet.
Alternative to our existing.
It's alternative, well, it's alternative to 20th century zoning. So that's what really wiped it off the landscape of, of our country.
Can you provide me a example of a modern single room occupancy zoning code that is not related to like homeless housing? Because I went after our last meeting and looked and looked and looked, and everything I found was related to providing shelter to the unhoused.
Right.
And
In my opinion, a zoning code is not necessary. What's necessary is just the definition which exists in the IBC for congregate living. It's allowed. The International Building Code actually sets forth all the regulations that you need for that type of living. So zoning to me is irrelevant. We don't need zoning for that.
I don't know that neighbors would respond the same way.
Why? I mean, anywhere where you have multifamily dwellings or mixed use dwellings, why wouldn't you be allowed to have this kind of? Because it's
I
associated.
know you're
Wait a minute,
sensitive
hold
to
on, because is
perception.
it because it's associated with a population that maybe is less affluent or troubled or whatever?
I'm just saying, we get a lot of public comment, and if we could find.
I think that's also probably the point, is that's why the zoning doesn't exist, because zoning exists in a way to prevent this type of thing, right? I mean, I think that's what you're getting at, Pedro.
True. As long as you don't
It's like-
associate it with, as long as you don't associate it with the word affordable, it shouldn't be that contentious.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to, I think when you use workforce housing, it's harder, I mean, I think you're going to get pushback, but it's harder to push back against that, because at least there seems to be a little bit of a wave to help support that now. But I mean, there does seem to be something with affordable housing in town too, but at least at town meeting. I mean, you're going to have people going against it, but yeah, I mean, I think, having different types of zoning to allow people all across the economic spectrum, I mean, I think that's beneficial for the town. I mean, I get like how all of these things, can become a problem, but when you have, good actors in town managing these places, then, like Construct, I mean, they have, they do some really good work. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think at least we should start looking at these things. And I don't know what we're going to find in zoning in the States, I mean, that as an example for what we want to do, or what we're thinking, we're entertaining to do. So I don't know, we might have to, might have to lead in this, or you might have to really look back, prior to zoning to like, what went on and how did it work and what were some of the problems, and then try to create zoning around that.
I think there's two issues. Is one, the body of information I could find, and that's, Pedro, why I'm asking for some help if you've got some other information, is all around shelter type housing. And I recognize everyone deserves to have housing. I'm just sensitive to the fact that we're gonna get a lot of interest from the community. Is there a way to mitigate that by framing it in terms of, you know, a use that's permitted as an adaptive reuse of an existing building? We have several in town that could potentially be adaptively reused, you know, like.
But
I don't know.
Brandy, I think what you, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think what you're finding is like, it's being presented as that way as a way to prevent it from happening. So, you know, that this kind of housing is sheltering, and that, you know, that's not, I don't think that's what we're talking about at all. But I think it's being presented in that way to prevent this type of housing from happening. And it really is, you know, it's kind of like starting out, you know, it's for people, yeah, with less economic means, but also maybe unattached people, you know, and, you know, I mean, it's that sort of thing. And so, I mean, I think what we're going to find is, you know, things to try to prevent this type of housing from coming up. And so I think, you know, encountering like the only versions we see of it is I mean, it makes sense that the only versions we see are associated with things that outside of cities, you know, people are going to be like, oh no, you know. So anyway.
Okay, well, Chris, on that matter, Chris said that he'd do a little investigation as well.
So, I mean, it seems to me that the procedure should be, I mean, to get these definitions, to look at our bylaws and say, okay, how are we using these terms?
In terms of the third
And then
item, the
look-
lodging homes, tourist homes, and
Well, and yeah, right, lodging them, tourist homes,
congregate living
congregate
facilities.
living, and then take a look and then ask ourselves, what should it be? And then going from there. I know Pitch has already done thoughts on that, and I think we need to, you know, use that as a starting point going forward. But I think the first thing we need to do is figure out where we stand in terms of the definitions, the building code, our bylaw, and then where should we be in the future? That would be my recommendation on how to.
Yeah, so Chris, you were going to dig out your notes from speaking with town council?
I will.
Okay, and Pedro, you have some notes on the definitions currently?
I do.
Okay, so can we aggregate them and make them as part of a submission for next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have other items, Peter?
I mean, I don't know, these are just other ideas. I think we'll have to, I mean, I'm more interested in doing Stockbridge Road than getting into these other items.
Okay, well, we can talk.
Okay. All right, so I don't know, we sort of bled into board and subcommittee updates, issues and concerns, but Pedro, did you have anything else that you wanted to cover?
No,
Okay, Jonathan?
Malcolm goes first.
Okay,
Well, we have, Jonathan and I have a housing subcommittee meeting on Tuesday.
Okay.
So we'll bring up some, you know, these items, but we're also going through, basically what we did in the last meeting is sorted up a spreadsheet of all the initiatives that we're aware of. And then trying to hash through that, and that should lead toward some kind of group meeting to talk about, you know, what the priorities are and what can be done.
so do you think at this point, like, are we a couple of months out before there's any sort of like report out from those discussions?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
The Housing Trust meets Tuesday night. FYI.
Okay, Jonathan?
Well, I brought up at the last meeting of the housing subcommittee that I think that the short-term rental law needs to be amended to eliminate the restriction against tenants having short-term rentals. And the chair was not very happy that I brought that up.
But it got on the list.
It was on the list, but she tried to close the meeting without, it was on the agenda. And then the whole discussion that we had did not appear in the minutes.
That's problematic.
That was,
So is there any citizens movement to move that along as a citizens petition?
I'm sure we get it if you can find tenants in this town.
Well, come January, you guys are going to take it up again anyway, because building code is changing. And all those provisions are coming into play, so we're gonna.
Do we know that for a fact?
That's
Have you seen-
2022.
21,
So the draft that I was working from has been adopted
2021. It will be adopted in January.
in January as
Stay along.
Ed had printed it.
That
So
is-
you don't even need that short-term rental
No,
bylaw.
we don't need it.
So, yeah, so let's,
And it's gonna be more restrictive than anything we have.
okay, then we'll just hold on that one and wait.
But that's, I think, for the subcommittee. That law came out of the subcommittee. So something needs to get done there because we're gonna be in conflict with the building code.
Oh, that was brought up at the.
but somebody tell me what this is all about.
It's complicated, but the new building code that'll be adopted in January addresses short-term rental and what's
Mhm.
required
In what regard?
from a building code point of view. So
Okay.
it has inspection regimes and then separate,
Does it start
egress,
And
a
if it's,
definition?
and if
Yeah.
it's not
Oh.
owner occupied, then
all of that stuff
Then
is
they-
in there.
can only rent for 30 days or more.
All of
unless-
it.
If they want to rent for less than 30 days, they have to qualify as a hotel.
You know what, I'll report back next meeting on that if you want, because I haven't looked at if the state has made changes to that.
Okay, is there
Oh,
a place that you can see if they would?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have, yeah,
Okay.
I'll send you
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
pages
somebody
if you
will-
want.
Next meeting, but
I'll see if I can find any amendments that were made at the state level.
Why would you say the state building code would conflict with a local law, bylaw? Or vice versa?
Because it's totally different. Our bylaw would be much more lenient than what the building code provides. And so building code and zoning are two different things. Well, this isn't a zoning, actually. It's a town bylaw.
Right.
So the town bylaw would be conflicting with the building code, and the building code or whatever. The common practice is that whichever law you're looking at, whichever one is more restrictive is going to govern. So basically it's going to.
so the
is
building
there-
code will now specify how many days in
Every-
non-owner occupied house can be rented.
Minimum
I don't
30
think
days.
so. I think that's being misconstrued a little bit. My reading, and maybe we should put this on another agenda. My reading of the building code amendments were that they govern the life and safety requirements that would have to be provided, for example, in a single family home that offers short-term rentals. And if a single family home, for example, offers short-term rentals and the owner it was not an owner occupied unit, it would essentially be treated as a hotel and would have to
Right,
comply with
exactly.
hotel-related
Right,
life and safety requirements, exit signs, sprinklers, et cetera,
right.
and full handicap accessibility, I think.
All of that is
Which doesn't necessarily conflict with our local bylaw. And then if it was owner occupied, it's treated more as a residential use.
Right.
You can still short-term rent still has the same definition.
But it has
Less.
but it does have completely different inspection regime
Mhm.
they would have, even if it's owner occupied.
So maybe it's the inspection regime.
Yeah, well, that and then the
Well,
definitions, the
We
terms,
can
the
discuss.
stays,
That's
all
the
of it.
gist of it.
I think that'd be a good topic for next meeting.
Yeah,
If we
that's
have
what,
time for it.
you're right, that's what what the building code
This
would
board
do
members.
is manage life safety of the use for sure.
It's the new
But-
building code. Has
But we,
anything-
what the,
So,
Which is not our
Yeah.
bylaw. That's-
yeah, that's where I was gonna go with that. So,
And the board that passed it was made fully aware of it prior to their passing it. It's not news to them.
no, but this is why I think the subcommittee is where it needs to happen, because it's not a bylaw. And you've got people on that committee who pushed it through, so. both of the select board members on that committee.
I need more information on how it conflicts so before I can take it to.
I'm not saying that it conflicts, but it
Well, you
allows
said it.
okay. Conflicting maybe was the wrong term, but what it does is it raises questions between what our bylaw allows and what the building code is dictating. So
Okay, well,
I mean, I can dig out the provisions. And I'll check with the state code, see if there are amendments in the state code. Did you read the amendments to the state code?
I saw the proposed amendments 6 months ago, but I
But
haven't.
in the state code or just in the IBC?
I think it's our adoption, is it state amendments to the IBC? No.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I heard.
Yeah, so that's where I think that's what Ed showed you are the amendments. I'm pretty sure.
I don't
I'll look,
I don't know.
in the next couple of weeks, I'll send you guys some info on that.
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
So Pedro, is IBC automatically adopted in the whole country?
No, not in the whole country.
State by state.
And so it's state by state has to adopt it?
And municipalities can opt out of it. Like New York City has its own, for example. I think Chicago has its own, big cities will have their own building code.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then the state will add amendments to that international standard.
Okay.
Anyway, here we go again.
All right, so let's see, I guess Jeremy, board issues or concerns?
No, but so I guess one addition to the CPC's calendar, I think it's set for November 1st at 5 o'clock. There's going to be a meeting to review 243's Main Street, which we saw tonight. To review to hear their presentation, and because they were given a grant in the last cycle.
The meeting date's been set, the agenda has not been set.
Oh, okay, but was that meeting specifically just for 243?
343.
Oh, 343, excuse me.
The
343
agenda's
Main
not
Street.
been set.
Okay. Okay. So maybe if they can come. But we have a meeting on that date. Which is not to review step one, so.
It is to reduce ones at least.
Is it? I
Yeah.
thought we had, didn't we? Oh, no, okay.
What's
I'm sorry.
confusing?
We never had the step one set. So, okay, I'm sorry. We only have the deadline set and we never had the meeting set. This is taking really long to get our meetings dates this time, Chris.
Are your painkillers kicking in?
No, I am not on painkillers, so I'm just in pain. So this is just the pain kicking in.
We're sorry, Jeremy. All right, okay, thanks for keeping us posted. The only other thing, it's my fault, I forgot to put it on the agenda. Pedro had worked up a draft letter for the planning board to send to the select board regarding Housatonic Waterworks. He and I went back and forth and I had it in my head that was on the agenda, but I want to just make sure it gets on our next meeting agenda so the board can take action on it.
You'll find yourself by then.
It may well be, I don't know, yeah, it's a long and torturous road.
So just the select board has a special meeting at 4:15 on Monday
Yes,
regarding this.
okay,
If anybody's interested.
okay, thank you. What is that,
Just this one, it's by
17th?
Zoom only.
okay.
No.
Okay, anything else? Planners report?
No, I was just gonna mention next meeting can be more or less devoted to housing.
Okay, Housing and zoning.
housing zoning amendments. November 10th, we'll have a special permit public hearing. This board has an application pending from the folks, the developers of Barrington Brook, to amend their open space boundaries.
Mhm.
So they'll come in on the 10th.
Okay,
And I guess, I
Sure.
wonder if the board wants to consider a second meeting in
that's what I
November,
was just gonna ask, yeah.
I'm open.
not on
Not on
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Are you kidding? We could have like the owls here and we could all eat turkey or
Turkey for the owls.
turkey.
We could
Depending
dress
on
the
our
gals up as
preferences.
turkeys.
So our first meeting in November is November 10th, as Chris just said. And so is anyone traveling that week?
Yeah, I'll be out west, but I can do
We'll do
By Zoom,
hybrid
yeah.
style. 21st, 26th, so actually I have a meeting on the 21st, that doesn't work for me. 22nd, how was that,
What day of the
Tuesday the
week?
22nd?
Tuesdays are fine for me.
Chris, is there already conflict for you on Tuesday the 22nd?
Of Thanksgiving week? Oh, yeah.
the, yes.
You working overtime that week?
Yeah, definitely.
Looks okay, it's like we're meets the 21st.
I think, can we tentatively set a meeting for the 22nd? And if we don't think we have sufficient business, I'm fine just skipping over it, but we get into a situation that, you know, we lose that meeting and the opportunity to do some
Can-
work and.
Can
December
we do
be-
it? Is it possible to do it the week after? Or is that
The-
too late? 29th?
The 29th is my birthday and I don't want to.
Oh,
be at a
okay.
meeting. Is that all right?
Well, I want to celebrate with you, Brandon.
Oh, Brandy.
No, we could do it, but
I even have it on my
I'll
calendar.
have to be here in person so that you can have cupcakes.
And you can be remote.
I can be remote, that would be awesome.
And we can watch you.
Well, we can.
No, I could do the 27th, I could do the 29th or 30th.
No, we
The
should do the 22nd.
The 5th Wednesday, and none of us would have any meetings if we had other obligations.
Wednesdays are really difficult.
Are
days
they?
for me.
Yeah.
I can do it, but it's really difficult for me because I usually work until 6.
Can we do tentative the 22nd then?
Yes. Is that 6 o'clock?
6 PM is our normal time? Is that okay for you?
Unless you want
Jeremy?
to go back to 7 or 7:30.
I love doing them a little earlier, because then we don't have such late
Yeah.
nights.
I am so
yeah.
tired
We want
by the
chair
time
to
it gets
stay
later.
Want me to stay awake?
Yeah.
I had coffee at 4:30 just so I could be awake for this meeting. Okay,
We're penciling in.
the
20
22nd at 6 PM
Okay.
as a tentative second meeting for November. All right,
And
thank
then
you,
what are doing on
everybody.
the 29th, Jonathan?
We're having cake.
You have to have a
You're
birthday
sticking.
party plan.
Yes.
All right, do we have any citizens who wish to speak?
No.
Do we have, oh, we have a citizen in the room.
Yeah,
She
we
wishes
do.
to
We have
speak.
a,
Haven't you noticed how quiet I
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
No. I'm Jackie Kane, I live 17 on Cross Road,
Thank you,
and you
Jack.
have nothing to say.
and I'm not right.
All right,
It's a big wall.
look on the screen, Jackie, you made it on the screen.
I'm gonna let you guys all take a retreat and discuss housing and definitions.
Yeah.
We retreat every other Thursday.
But our retreats have to be public.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
All right, seeing no additional citizens speak, we will adjourn at 7:43. Thank you, everybody. So nice to see you all in human form.
In person.
Right.